Okay, today is Monday, September 21st, class 10. For Revit, we'll be creating sheets today. We'll talk about how to create title sheets, use of visibility graphics in creating sheets, insert site location and north arrow on site, and then we'll also talk about renderings. And then your midterm is September 30th. Okay, so last we left off, we were talking about sheets. Oh, I do want to review a couple other things. So on your sites that people had turned in already, when you're doing those dimensions, you only need to dimension on one side at a time. So if you have a 30-foot dimension here and a 30-foot dimension here, obviously it's a rectangle, it's going to be the same dimensions. You only have to dimension two sides. You don't need to dimension this side and this side. It's a little redundant. If this side was a different measurement, yes, but if it's the exact same measurement, we don't need to show that twice. So you can just measure that once on either side of it. And one thing I also wanted to have everybody pay attention to is how to create property lines. When you're creating your site, remember, we want to go to the Massing and Site tab, and the first thing we want to start off with is our property line tool, and we want to do that create by sketching. And this is going to allow us to draw out the exact size of the site that we need. On your midterm, you will be asked to create a site to a specific size. So make sure that you do know how to use that site tool first. So remember, the first place you want to start when you're creating your site is property line. Once you get your property line in, you want to go to Topo Surface. And then you can just click that site in at that time. If we jump to 3D, we'll see we have that site in place, but as you can see here, we also have the site within our model itself, so we want to remove that, and you do want to do that by using your split surface tool. You click on the tool, make it active, then click on the site that you want to split, then draw the geometry that you want to cut out. Get your green check mark. At that time, I don't have access to that, so I need to hide this slab to get to it. I can select that piece that I just cut out and delete it. Now you've removed that site from the inside of the model. I probably actually should have done that a different way, because notice that this is got a gap in here now, but I can go ahead and fix that. All right. Those are just a couple of things that I noticed that people had missed on the last assignment. All right, going forward, we'll talk about creating sheets. So we're going to do the title sheet first. Remember, if we go back to that information that we have in Canvas, under your midterm project, there's a plan set. You can refer back to this title sheet when you're creating your title sheet. Basically what we want on the title sheet is just the name of the project. If you wanted to come up with something creative, the name of the project, that's fine. And then list your information on here, such as the date that it's due, project name, things like that. And then you also want to fill in this information here. So what we are going, how we are going to do that is, remember, when we're creating sheets, we want to go to our project browser, our sheet section. We're going to right click, create a new sheet. For this project, we're just going to be using the 11 by 17. That's not listed here, so we're going to go to the load tab. What you'll probably see is your list of components, you want to scroll down to title blocks, and we're just going to pick the 11 by 17. Once you have this loaded in the model, it's going to stay in the model, so you just hit OK and make it active. So if we're going to make this our title sheet, we want to go to our Annotate tab, and we're going to use our text tool in order to lay out some of the information that we have on there, such as the name of the project, your name, date that it's due. So I'm going to go to my text, and if you go to your properties and your type selector, you'll notice on this drop down we only have a couple loaded in here. So the default is text 1/4 inch Arial, but we can change that. We can change that just like we did the other stuff that we've changed in the past. We go into edit type. At this time, you're going to duplicate, and say you wanted to make this a 1/2 inch. And the type of text that you want, and then just do my initials so we know we did that. So hit OK. At this time, you can go to text font here, and you can scroll down to the one you want to use. You can change the height of it. And then when you come in here, you can start laying out your text. And when you lay out your text and then you click off of it, you'll notice that we have some directional arrows that show up. So at this time, you can move the location of this. You'll see that there is a rotational arrow in here as well. It's not recommended to rotate on the title page, but sometimes if you're using text throughout the rest of the project, there's times that you may want to rotate it. If I wanted to create this same font in a smaller size, I would have to create a new font and do Trebuchet 1/4 inch and go underneath that. So once again, it's a lot of the same stuff. Just going into text, edit, duplicate, rename, and you can create any text size or use any of the text fonts that are in here that are available to you now. If you did want to change the color, you would change the color here as well. It's not recommended, especially for a title page. You want to keep something really clean, but if there's ever any times that you want to change the color, you are available to do that as well. Let's hit OK, out of that, and escape. Any questions on how to insert text? Okay. So for your title sheet, I'll give you a list of things that I want you to put on here. Basically, it's just going to be name of the project, midterm project is fine. If you want to change the name, if you came up with, some people come up with just names, different names for their project, they use the address if they wanted to, or just, whatever. So name of the project, your name, and then the date that it's due, and then the same thing, fill that out over here under owner, put Delgado or DCC, but I'll supply you this information later today, what needs to be put on your title sheets. So this would be just the beginning of your title sheet once you start laying out the rest of that information. What I do ask too is that you create a picture for this cover. And how we would do that is we'll just use like a vicinity map type thing. And how we'll create that is we'll go to, you can go to like Google Earth or something like that, or maps or whatever you want to use. And we're just going to take a snip. I like to use the snipping tool of the area that your house is located. Say this is a house right here. You can just type in snip. to use the snipping tool, go to New, and you want to select the area. Like if I just selected this area right here, that's not great because it only gives me one, it doesn't give me the name of this cross street here, it only gives me the name of one street. So what you want to think about is how you want that to be laid out. So it'd probably be best if I selected this area right here. And I probably want to center that a little bit better, but once again, it's just kind of practice at how you wanted to lay out that house, because it could be a little confusing with this one. So we could make a notation that it's this lot right here. So once you have that, you can go ahead and save that. Once you have your picture saved, you can go ahead and go back to Revit. In this, with this sheet active, you want to go to the Insert tab. Insert image. Find the image that you saved. I just did the capture for that snipping tool. It's going to come in, it's going to look something like this when it does, and then you can just kind of drop that in place. Then you can use these nodes to shrink the size of it to whatever size that you want it to look. And then while it's active, you can change the location. When you click off of it, that's going to go away. But when you click on it and make it active, that's when you can move it again. But typically, I would do something like this. Just going to keep that aligned. And then I would align my other information down here, midterm, name, date, and keep everything really kind of clean looking. You want to think about how people are going to be reading this, so you don't really want to have this staggered. It's just a lot easier to keep everything on the same plane. Okay. All right, next we'll talk about use of visibility graphics. Touched base on this a little bit, but let's go into this in a little bit more detail and what I'm really talking about when I mention that. So I'm going to do another sheet. And when we touched on this last time, it was basically just for sites and things. But we will use that a lot as we progress through here and start doing our more advanced sheets. So I'm just going to throw in a couple things on here. Let's throw in a couple of trees. Let me go to level 1. So my level 1 here, you can see that these trees are still showing up. I've got my property line on here as well. So when I actually put this level 1 on a sheet, remember, we're going to go to level 1, click, drag, drop that in place, kind of center that. A couple things we want to look at here. I'm going to go back to my level 1, and I'm going to move this elevation tag over a little bit more. And in this sheet, notice I have a couple things that are showing up that I don't want to be on my floor plan sheet. So this is our floor plan, so we always want to have that set to hidden lines. And I'm going to turn off this planting. So to go to visibility graphics, I'm going to go to VV. I'm going to turn off the categories that I don't want, which would include plantings, Notice that we do have a lot of floor patterns here. In this view, I don't need to see my floor pattern, so I can unclick floor patterns as well. If you unclick floors, then that'll disappear. This slab disappeared when I did that, but I don't actually want this external slab in my floor plan, so that's okay. Now let's go back to my sheet. I'm going to scale this up one. Remember to scale up. We click on that, make it active. I'm going to go back to level 1, hit my visibility graphics. I'm going to my annotation tab, and I want to turn off this site plan. Site. And I'm going to lay out the sheet how I wanted to. I could actually make that a little bit bigger now. Yeah. We'll shrink up that title block. Move that there. At this time, you can go ahead and go back to the sheet. You can either work in, I always have it go back to the floor plan itself. If you wanted, you can click on and make it active, and you can work within the floor plan here, but I just prefer to go back to the level 1. At this time, I'm going to go to the Annotate tab. I'm going to use my Align tool, and I'm going to start laying out my internal dimensions. And remember just how we changed our dimensions last time using those nodes. You can do the same thing on here. And for your door and window dimensions, you can dimension from the opening to the wall measurement, or if it's from window to window, you can do that as well. And we did overall wall measurements before on here, but let's do another way to do that. We can go back to the Align tool. If we go to our options bar, if we notice along here, we can pick wall center line, we can pick wall faces, center core. We'll just leave it defaulted to center line, but you can change that if you wanted to. And also notice it says pick individual references. On some of our other walls, we can do entire walls at one time. So if you pick on that, when we do that, we'll just click on the wall. And notice it'll go ahead and just put in that dimension there. And set my dimensions where I want them to be. And then also when you do that, if you have pick entire wall, you can go to options, and then you can do to openings, intersecting walls, things like that. Here's, it'll be measured to center or the widths. Let's just do centers for now. And then we pick on this wall. And this wall, it's going to pick that. I'm not sure why I didn't pick that one. That's not good. Or when you're doing your individual dimensions, You can pick the individual references if you want to. And start laying those out. And remember, I didn't poche this, and I could probably go up one more. And let me check my view scale on here. Let's try one more. Yeah, it's probably a little big, even though I could shrink up some of these and make them a lot tighter, look a lot better. And then finally, for the north arrow for your site, we'll go to our floor plan site. And here we can go to the architecture tab. We can go to components. We can go to load family. And we'll find the north arrow. Site. Sometimes has a problem with finding the stuff that you want. Okay, here we go. All right, that's great. All right, so apparently the north arrow is not loaded in on my project. You may find that as well with some of these other components, but for north arrow, that's okay. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and draw and just use our annotate tab. And I'm just going to use text. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just draw an N. Wow, that's a little big. So let's escape that. I obviously want to change the size of this. It's a little big. And I'll orient that to true north. And preferably this would be an arrow, so it would show that north is going this way, but just for the sake of your project, say your true north is going in this direction from your house. Obviously we have it laid out like this, and this just shows the direction of true north. It's not great, it's kind of, but we do not have a north arrow available. If you do have a north arrow available, you're just going to do the same thing. So just be like north, and it will show north in the correct direction that it's actually going to be going. So if we go back to our sheet, say on here from my sheet, true north is actually this way. So when I orientate the, if I rotated the drawing, so it's facing actually west, my north arrow would just indicate the direction of true north. It's really good if you have this Google Earth view to orientate that north arrow, but you can just lay it, have that laid out with just an N on your document, which would be fine on your site plan. So last thing we want to do today is talk about renderings, which is actually probably one of the more fun things that we do here. Let me go ahead and zip this around here. I'm going to go ahead and throw a roof on here real quick. Architecture tab, roof tool. I'll do a 2-foot overhang. So just to do a quick rendering on here to see what that looks like, I just kind of align the screen to how I want it to look. I'll have something a little bit closer like this. Let's do the front view. And we want to go to our View tab. And in our presentation tool, we want to use our Render tool. So Render is going to be set to draft. So it's because sometimes the longer you take as far as the settings are concerned, the quality, medium, high, best, it takes kind of a long time, especially once your drawings get really big. So let's just use draft to start with. So with that set, I'll go ahead and just hit render. I'll give it a second to think. So we start to see something that looks like this. The thing is, think of the render tool as just as like a picture. It's taking a picture, so it's not going to change. If we went ahead and did save the project, this would be a static view, and it would not change. So if I wanted to change the application of that, change the angle that I wanted to take that picture at, I have to actually change my view here. And then I can go back to render. And you can see this is just a draft view, and it does take a little while, and this is a very small model. But you can see really kind of the render is really where these things start to pop. And these are the views that you would use if you're showing these to a client. You can also load these views into Photoshop, and you can really do a very realistic rendering on these, especially when you get to the higher quality settings. So what I'd like you to do is just do a couple of renders once you're finished, just to see what it looks like. You can play with that now. But once you have everything completed, all your sheets and things like that, then you can just go ahead and do a couple of renders. You don't have to load any renders into any of your sheets this time. We will be doing that for the final project, but I just wanted to show you how to render now, just because it's kind of fun to see how these things develop and see what it would actually look like once you have everything finished. So that is it for today. Once again, I would use the rest of this time to actually start finishing up your project, pulling this together. This afternoon, you will have that list, that sheet list, and all the information, the midterm project list that you need to do to pull everything together, get everything finished for next Monday. You can also use this time to ask any questions or anything like that. If you feel like you're having issues, if I've written anything on your drawing, or if you haven't turned anything in and you're having issues with it, let me know so we can review that and get that taken care of. But I will get more information out to you later today as far as what's going to be needed for the midterm and then also for your midterm project. So any questions, y'all?
We had talked the other day about my problems I was having with the program, but I think I fixed it with it not saving, and I guess I'll just upload the annotation thing from last week late, if that's okay.
Okay, Ray. Yeah, I remember we spoke before about that. So if you still need help, just let me know. If you're feeling comfortable with it now, you had a chance to redo everything, that's cool too. Just let me know if you need any any assistance with that later today.
All right, thanks.
Cool, thank you. Anybody else? All right, cool. Let's go ahead and drop, and then you can have a chance to start working on this today. Remember, anytime you do have any questions, especially today, I'll be home all day working. So text me if you need help, and I'll try and get online. I have other work to do as well, but if it's between meetings or anything like that, I can jump on and we can set a time for us to meet and get everything worked out for you. So, all right. y'all have a good couple of days, and I will see y'all Wednesday.